Alright, y'all, I'm back with another vid about, this one has to do with both depression and what I strongly believe is another case of postpartum depression. I know I said in the last video I wasn't going to make this thing as long as Roots, and this time I'm really not, but there are some foundational things that I think, across the board, baseline, we really need to understand about what mental illness is, and it's not. So what we've heard all week, I'm sure somebody's been watching it, this mother, Ebony Wilkerson in Daytona Beach, who attempted suicide, a murder-suicide, feticide, by driving her 1 to 3 children and herself with an unborn baby. I don't know how far along she was, but it's all unfortunate, into the ocean there, down in Daytona Beach. Now, just let me start by saying this. I keep saying it in all of the videos. You have to look at these things kind of emotionally and not so much intellectually, because it really doesn't make sense. What explanation is there for a mother who would try to kill her kids along with herself? And that could lead to just a lot of cruelty that would block us from really understanding what's going on. Now, hear me. I'm not defending wrongdoing. I'm not trivializing this in any way. I'm not saying what she did is excusable. It is not. Or well, she has a mental illness and that gives you a pass. It does not. But if we could just bridle our emotions, and I know everybody's angry and pissed and right about now, I'm upset as well. I'm so glad that the kids are doing, reasonably okay, all things considered, and that they won't be scarred for life. But what's going on here with all of these mental illnesses, you have to look at the root of the problem. We can be angry, we can be pissed, we can throw away the key, we can blame her forever and say she should rot in hell. Is that going to solve the problem? Now, again, I'm not, saying that just hold her hand and let her off. Heck, Andrea Yates, she got her sentence overturned in, 2012 by reason of insanity. Heidi Mann is another one. She got 25 years in a mental institution. What I'm saying is that prisons and jails are not hospitals. Our criminal justice system is not run at all by medical personnel, nor does our justice system really care about a person's mental, emotional, physical well-being. There's always been a clash. There's always been this friction between mental health or really any medical issue that's really not understood and the courts. And what a judge will do is try to summon someone who has an MD behind their name, anyone, and just, appoint them as an expert in these cases. It doesn't mean the person really knows squat. You can have a degree in anything. Doesn't mean that you're competent, and especially with maternal or women, female wellness issues, just in general. I don't think it's appropriate for you to have a place to say, anything. But what I've said before, again, I'm not making light of anyone's situation, especially those who have lost loved ones to people or at the hands of someone who's mentally ill. No, not at all. No disrespect to the dead at all, but not everyone just wakes up, out of nowhere. This stuff has to come from somewhere. You just don't wake up and decide to say, okay, I'm going to kill 500 people, or I'm going to kill my baby and eat the brains, or I'm going to kill myself and all the kids. You just don't wake up and just decide to do that. Like, let me see. Oh, Lord, who I can take to go meet our maker today. You don't do that. So what I'm saying is you can throw someone away. You can lock away the key and don't trust. The courthouse is going to nail her to the door and rip her to shreds. And then some people will probably say, well, that's what she needs. That's good for her. How are we going to prevent this from happening again? Same thing. We have a throwaway system and this way of thinking ill of and towards the mentally ill in this country. And it shouldn't be that way. Now, I'm not talking about people who just deliberately wake up and decide that they're going to hurt someone. They're going to burn down a school, people who play crazy. Like some guy beats the crap out of his wife, let's just say, with a guitar, and then you want to go to court and tell a judge that Elvis told you to do it. I'm talking about folks who really have something wrong, and not those that just decide, they're going to take out all their anger and frustration and things that happened to them in the past out on kids or women. I survived a whole lot of bull, and I did not grow up to be a pedophile. So it's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of bias and labeling and a lot of misunderstanding, again, about what mental illness is and is not. Specific to Ebony Wilkerson here, something went right. I think she finally just snapped or something sent her over the edge. But we're still in kind of that phase that I like to call suspect 7. And that's the first 7 days, first week, maybe even week and a half, after some big story breaks. In other words, every news channel has to, make sure they outdo the other one with just the biggest story and just a little extra detail and being more, accurate than the other. And give it about a week. It's been about a week now. And then when you start to put together some of the same stories and same explanation from at least 4 or 5 sources, then you can start going, oh, okay, this here must have at least some truth to it. And even if you don't understand, again, just kind of pull yourself away from, she shall rot in hell, and I don't want to hear anything, and she's just a criminal. They're already, here's here's a big difference of opinion going on already. Now, Ebony Wilkerson, she has been married 14 years to an abusive husband. Not even days after this happened, Mr. Wilkerson gets himself an attorney, the abusive husband, mind you. Mr. Abuser has an attorney who's already saying that, his wife is crazy and she makes up these things, and how much you want to bet he's going to try to get custody of those kids. The police chief there in Daytona Beach is saying, well, she doesn't have a history of mental illness. Follow the timeline. This is what I mean. Try to look outside of what you're seeing immediately, because there's 20 different sides to a story. That's just it. But right about now, when this happened, a week before that, she called 911 and said, my husband beat me and raped me. His attorney says she made that up. Police chief says she doesn't have any mental illnesses. So who's lying? Is, the husband, the pillar of the community, the abuser, and his attorney is telling the truth? Or is the, not district attorney, is the police chief telling a big fat lie just so he can make it look strictly criminal? Because that is his job. They are like military recruiters and telemarketers and salesmen, car salesmen. They have quotas. They can't look like that they are wrong in the public's eyes. They have to have so many arrests. I ain't a conspiracy theorist. Okay. You'll be surprised how these people operate and what their motives are. That's just how the justice system works. He or she, in this case he can't look like he doesn't know how to, defend and keep safe the jurisdiction or county or state that is under him. He cannot look like he has, just murderers running around, and it reflects poorly on the prosecutor. So their job is to witch hunt and to make whoever looks guilty look really guilty, pick their lives and their pasts apart, just build this big fat defense that this person was this evil woman from day one. And we've all seen TV. We know how they do, but unfortunately a lot of that is true. They're going to try to stick it to this woman. And already Friday, I think it was? That's rather quick. You have some people suspected of, breaking and entering, larceny, stealing millions of dollars, Ponzi schemes, and they will sit in in jail for months before they get a court date. They put her on $1 million bond within days, Really? Okay, so she's just looking like this horrible murderer. And what she did was despicable. It was. But at the same time, I don't think we really know as much as we think we know, especially about the severity of postpartum depression. And a lot of times, what's not spoken of as often, but is entirely relevant, is antepartum depression. What what was going on with her mental state before, she had gotten pregnant? Like I said, follow the timeline. Now, granted, you're visiting another state. Nobody's going to know anything about your personal life, your household, phone calls being made, any kind of trauma in another state unless they have a reason to look into that. But this was just a week before. She made this claim against her husband when she decided to go visit her sister here because she came from South Carolina in Daytona Beach. She had asked, this is what's being said, she had asked for an escort to the county line because she thought she was being followed, assuming she meant police escort. Okay, so she gets out of South Carolina, her and the kids, and now she's off to her sister's house. When she goes to visit her sister immediately called 911 and said, okay, my sister is being really erratic. She's in here talking about there are demons in my house, and they're telling her to do things, and she's talking to Jesus. Pause. Pregnant or not, you coming through the door with some kids, you have children with you, and you start talking about some invisible force or some invisible being told you to say something or is giving you directives towards your life or taking it, mine, the kids, or anything. You want to start talking to Jesus, maybe not in a normal way that her sister would deem normal. It was enough to make her call the police, but you want to start talking to Jesus and John and Paul and Mary and everybody else. Trust me, Akshay, me. I don't know about nobody else, but me. If I were to hear or witness any of that, trust me, before you can go and grab the invisible choir robe and start saying amen, we would have been in an emergency room somewhere. And unfortunately, with the way the medical system works and psych care and all of that, a lot of the times the ERs don't really have any beds available. You sitting there waiting for care. If you do not appear as a danger to yourself or society immediately, chances are, without any evidence that the kids was in some type of immediate harm, they're going to check it up to emotions. She's hormonal. She's pregnant. You and her and the kids just go back home. Had she called social services, it probably would have been the same thing. They start a paper trail, their leave, and investigation. And unfortunately, that's what happens. It's tricky. And our system is fragmented, is very broken in how we treat or address the lives and the illnesses of people who are diagnosed with all of these mental health problems. Now, if in fact she really did not, this here Ebony Wilkerson lady, she didn't have any illnesses whatsoever, obviously there's been a problem. Now, just looking at one thing before someone says, well, none of that is relevant, Akshay, you just bringing up, no, this is all relevant. Check this out. Assuming all of the kids are his, and I say that probably because they've been married 14 years. The oldest one is 10. The baby is 3. I think the middle girl is 9, or excuse me, her middle child is 9. I got a couple questions. One, does she have, if she has a documented, clearly something's wrong here, but if she has a documented history of mental illness, then why wasn't something done in the past? It hasn't been said yet whether she's been seeing a therapist, on any medication. Was she like this before she had gotten pregnant? If so, what was the first 3 years of the marriage like before, she got pregnant? And then year 4, when she actually had the first one, did she, hear things, and was she delusional and sick in any way like this with all the other pregnancies? Was she in an abusive relationship before? Are there some things that her family, that's going on with her family doesn't know, or maybe does know? Did she have these problems in the past? So on and so forth. You could spin this thing any way you want it, but putting someone away is not getting rid of a problem. It's not solving anything. It's not curing anything, because then what you have to look at is where they're being housed. Where do they just like to dump people with mental illnesses? In this case, for her, it's going to be prison. They've got her on aggravated child abuse, 3 counts of murder. It's insane. This, okay, poor choice of words, but what's going to happen? She'll end up behind bars. This is no hospital, no hotel. She can't go for a walk, take a hot bath, write your feelings down, and all of this that we're constantly being told. So her symptoms, that whole environment, you're in prison. It's just going to exacerbate all of this. And then she's not going to get any better. If she sees the light of day again, which I doubt, hey, anything's possible. Andrea Yates up walking around. If she sees the light of day again, she's not going to be well. How about we use this as a bookmark instead to say, okay, something has to be done about this. How do we prevent another Susan Smith, which was a little different. She was trying to get rid of her kids because this extramarital affair that she was having, her paramour did not want any children. But what about Shaquan Dooley? And I mean, kids are resilient. It amazes me. I think her daughter's maybe 9 or 10, Shaquan Dooley, and she killed her other kids. But her daughter was saying on Oprah, "I'm not mad at mommy. I go with grandma to the jail to visit her. I miss my mom. I miss my brother. And the kids are the ones that suffer in all of this. But what doesn't help, you just immediately get rid of whatever the catalyst is. But you don't, everything else that suffered because of that, or the root cause of where it came from, we're still not figuring out why. Somebody's always going on about meds. Meds are chemicals. They change how you think and act. And I'm going to do a guessing game. Somebody put in the description box for me this right here. Top 5 psychiatric drugs in the country that are known to be violent inducing, because they change everything: thought, memory, judgment, you name it. The top 5 psychiatric drugs in the United States that are violent inducing and cough up a combined like $1 billion worth of lawsuit money every year, or what, So if throwing a person away is not helping, if putting people on and off pills, and you search the web enough, you'll hear that $4 billion in federal funds for mental health services have been cut. Okay, so we have a problem. We have sort of kind of solutions and suggestions. We don't have the money to fund it. And I guess the logical thing in a lot of people's mind to do, well, this is just still murder or attempted murder, which it is just to throw people away. Again, the problems were there all along. What did we not see? What are we overlooking? And more importantly, how do we prevent this from happening again? I could be on pills all day. Let me see. What did they give me? They gave me this one to calm me down. They gave me, okay, well, that's the old one. Bottom line is I was on 200 milligrams of one thing, now 400 milligrams of the same pill. The problem still hadn't gone away. They gave me this one, so I won't be too jittery. And then they gave me this one, in case that one didn't work. And they gave me this one to keep from having seizures. Out of sight, out of mind. It's still that I fixed the problem. I still have all of these diagnoses, and I still see a shrink every month. A therapist every week. But the psychiatrist who writes the prescriptions, I see her, every 2 months, sometimes 3. So I'm on pills, been locked up, not in prison, but in, a mental institution, and they let me out. But the problem still remains. I really don't think we know enough about this, and we keep hearing it over and over. What's this maternal attachment in such a sick way that causes a person not to think rationally? We already know something was up besides her hearing voices. Andrea Yates said the same thing. And oddly enough, what Andrea Yates, her husband, had said from the time he got the phone call, he had a sinking feeling, what did she do to my kids? If you had any suspicion, I want one male human being watching this, you had any suspicion that your kids weren't safe with their mom, or she could hurt herself or them, would you blink, twice or even a half a second after that about making a decision to call someone, or, to have your kids taken away, or start a legal process to get this woman in some place where she could get some help, But just some state psychiatric hospital when she's doped up on pills all day is not the answer. But when you're serving time in one of those places, or maybe a psychiatric facility that is there for penal reasons, not just medical. But when both of them are involved, you have staff trained to deal with that specifically. Your average jail or prison doesn't have, nurses running around to, aid and just address your mental health problems. It's just not like that. Not with our justice system. You'd have to be confined to a hospital with the therapy, the staff that's there are there specifically for, those who have been sentenced to those medical facilities for mental health based problems. It's a difference. But what I find interesting is we still, no matter how many times we see this, we're still not really understanding, I feel, as much as we can about, this attachment between mother and child, mother and newborns, or even mothers with older children, these suicide attempts where you take the kids with me. Yes, you'll have something that says, okay, I ticked at the spouse, and if I'm taking myself to hell, I'm taking babies with me. But those who just, and there's no rank system to this. There's no order where you can say that, well, this is more justifiable than this, and no, that's not what I'm saying. But I do believe that there's a difference with people who just get up and, again, they're ticked off and they're intending to hurt someone just for a reason that may not be mental health related, and the ones who are. And just by hearing how a lot of people think, you'll see a lot of parallels with all of this. Because, like, for example, with Wilkerson, she said, well, I didn't mean to, hurt anybody. I didn't do anything wrong. Really? I just wanted the kids to go to a safe place, and I'm keeping them, with me. That's why I wanted them to go to sleep. Then rescuer said she was shooing them away. She didn't want any help. Then in another story, she said that she was driving too close to the shoreline and the van fell in. What? So, yeah, obviously something is wrong, but what I find when I look at or hear about a lot of these cases is always something in there about safety, and I wanted the kids with me. Then the question obviously is going to be, okay, if you wanted the kids with you, why did you have to do that by death? You have sense enough to, be concerned about the kids' safety, but not sense enough, or maybe didn't care outside of the motives that you have and the feelings that you have for these children. And some of them don't take all of them with them, to not put them in that situation, to have to feel that kind of safety. So you always have, again, this contradiction going on all the time. Always. And it's sad because that's what people see instead of getting, and it's obvious, yes, it's horrific, but instead of getting down to the root of, okay, why in the world did this happen? What is going on with this? Why do we keep seeing, mothers hurting themselves and hurting the kids, and actually feel right in their head and their hearts that this is what they're supposed to be doing? There's something to this, and I remember reading, where'd it go? Not Andrea Yates. There was a black woman. I think her name was Frances. Frances Newton. This was a while back, maybe the 80s. She killed, both her kids and her husband, and said that people he owed drug money to, they did it. And there were a lot of questions about her mental illness, and she said she's innocent, and none of that applies. Okay? I get concerned about people who have empathy, but then they don't have empathy, really. Realistically, there cannot be empathy for within yourself for when you commit an act like this. But you have, again, that empathy and that care to want to protect your children. But essentially, you're protecting them from you. That's why this doesn't really make hardly any sense. And, I keep saying don't look at things, and try to piece them together intellectually. But clearly something is wrong. Where is it coming from? What didn't we notice? And how do we prevent it from happening again? what was her name? I think she was in Wisconsin. Can't remember. Kanisha Berry. She duct taped the mouth of and smothered her 4-day-old son. 4 days. What happened? These two here recently in Maryland. Zakia Avery. How you say it? Zakia Avery and Monifa Sanford. Together they call themselves the Demon Assassins. Really? And they think they're doing God's work. They stabbed all of Avery's 4 kids, killing the 2 younger ones. And I guess I won't say what started it off, but I think what's most memorable to people, I wrote this down because I remember hearing about it when I was really young, but then, you have the likes of, say, Susanna Simpson, and again, Heidi Mann. She said she wanted to spare the kids the pain of going through a divorce. She did not want them to have to live knowing mommy and daddy will be separate. But what she did, she took 4 out of her 6 children, put them in the minivan in the garage, and cranked it, closed the door. They didn't die, but prosecutors, of course, or her attorney said that she was mentally unstable. Okay? Marilyn Edge say she snapped. Mariah Perez said she snapped. And again, we remember Susan Smith and what was the chick's name? Way, way, way back in the day. She was like in the 70s. I think her last name was Tinning. She killed all 9 of her children, including one she adopted. And for that one, she only got 20 years. But if they get out of prison, I want to follow these people all these years later. Are they okay? Can they function? The kids are the ones that suffer, but what's going on with the woman? Several have said, I heard voices, the voices told me to do it, or somewhere in them, they just really felt in their heart of hearts that they were doing right because this was a way of protecting their kids. And, you probably say, what? How in the world are we protecting kids and we're hurting them? One, let me say this, not everyone. It's literally less than 10% of the mentally ill population that are severely mentally ill or that are criminally insane. There is the difference, you'll hear me say it often, between instability and illness. You can lock people away, but what does that help? How can we take one of these situations and say, what are we looking for? What should be noticed? What kind of mental health education programs would serve us better? I've worked with women and children in maternal health education and community outreach capacities a lot. And something I didn't notice that isn't, it wasn't like a standard of care at every prenatal appointment was a behavioral health component. You come back, they'll give you the cup to urinate in, you get your glucola, you get weighed, how's it going so far, and your appointments increase the closer to your due date. Okay? But after the pamphlets and how are you doing, and here's your suggestions to feel better, if you do not give the doctors an indicator or a reason to substantiate a referral for mental wellness checkup, a lot of times from what I've seen and where I've worked in a couple of different states, it wasn't, mandatory or just a part of how that practice did things. And I think that would be a big, big help, especially at your 6-week appointment. Because when you have your 6-week follow-up after birth, they're so, concerned about attachment and necessary attachment, whether or not you're able to nurse, physically how you're doing, especially if you had stitches, C-sections, are you still bleeding? It's a full wellness workup. But I think what is crucial, what would be so integral, what would help the situation 10 times better, and then get some comparative data about this versus all the years how so many facilities don't have this in place, is to make a mental wellness checkup in some way. I don't care if it's a questionnaire or classes that you have to attend, something. Make that a part of every prenatal visit, every time for the whole pregnancy. And then see where we are. And you probably say, okay, there's a difference between having a bad day and then being so stressed out to where you want to kill someone, especially your own children. And I agree, but I kind of have to stop making a light of things. This woman's just emotional, she's hormonal, and that's all. It was just a touch of the baby blues. You don't have a little bit of depression. Okay, you don't have just a little bit of sadness. We can't contain emotions like that when you could easily go off the deep end. There is a difference between postpartum depression and postpartum psychosis. Where does it go from here to 10, and then it just blows? That's what concerns me about this. And sadly enough, Ebony Wilkerson will probably fry. I don't know about getting the chair, but she's going to go behind bars, and it's not going to get better. What is that going to do so we can prevent this from happening again? About locking folks up. Check this out. I have here, I'll show you all of my business. Y'all see that? State of North Carolina. Ding, 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 ding. Affidavit and petition for involuntary commitment. They locked me up, y'all. They locked me up. They locked me up and let me out, several times. Guess what? The same problems I went in there with, I came out with. Out of sight, out of mind, but still not to fix anything. Pill after pill after pill. It's been years. I'm still seeing it shrink. What is the solution? This is heartbreaking. This is tragic. The kids are going to grow up with their mother and hopefully not in the custody of their abusive Ike Turner father. Now what? What? Now what? That's what I want to know. So I made another Roots video. I'm trying not to do that, but it's so much information to get out there, and I really want to make this as concise as possible. But at the same time, I don't want to sugarcoat anything and just give you quick snippets, because you really have to understand this thing or hear certain things in detail for you to really understand or begin to understand how all of this mental illness works. Okay, so I promise I'm going to try to make this my last 2-part video. And the specific ones by title, eventually you'll see if you're just hanging there with me, the bipolar disorder, depression, borderline personality, and, I'll go through them one by one so you have a better idea. But I needed to get some foundational things out, and I think I have with these first couple of vids just by breaking news. But then, like I said, you'll see the nutrition videos and the coping. It's about total wellness. Lock away, pump with pills, still not helping. What about, how do I take care of myself? How do you prevent stuff like this from happening? How can we better provide for the mentally ill now that you're back in the community? You can be locked up all day, but now, like foster kids, people out of prison, people out of the military, how do you learn independent living skills? What monies are actually left out there, to get people into community-based but residential independent programs so you can learn how to live on your own. You can learn how to pay bills. You can still learn how to take care of illnesses. Halfway houses do it all day for addicts. They just do. So where's that kind of help and support for the mentally ill if we can stop throwing people away? As far as Ebony Wilkerson, I do believe some things are just going on besides what we're seeing immediately. Again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse. I'm also not some vigilante. I'm not for burning down abortion clinics in Jesus' name. It's not like that at all, but I'm passionate about this because I can speak from experience. Hear my side of it. I think the exception to that will be, although I know they have problems too, some are pedophiles. To me, they can all rot in hell. That's just how I feel about it. Fall down a flight of escalator stairs backwards and land head first on a nail for all I care. There is no trying to get me to understand that. I've understood where people say why they are like that. Okay, but it's still, I can't sympathize or empathize. This one is a little different when I see these mother-to-child killings because they feel like they are either doing right or they feel totally horrible about it and couldn't fight and urge, to take their kids with them, or, to hurt their kids while themselves, because here's that sick contradiction, that contrast that doesn't work, that doesn't make sense. I'm going to hurt myself and I'm going to take my kids with me, so at least the kids will be with their mother. But somewhere in that thinking, they're not seeing that, okay, the kids have to be safe because of what you're doing, and they're going with you by a horrible means. So when you're not able to think clearly, you're not able to, I won't say really understand what it is that you're doing, but when you're standing behind, that school of thought, or that is rational to you, or that makes sense to you, that's what the real problem is. Seriously, you want to kill your kids to keep them protected? It's a lot more to this than what we see that's going on. And unfortunately, with our justice system, this is not about to end well. And I personally don't believe that she's going to be sent to a state institution where there are criminally trained, basically the medical version of COs running around. I think they're just going to lock her up, throw away the key. She'll be in a regular prison like all the rest of the murderers, and it's just not going to end well for her. So I'm going to keep, I'm not going to post an update vid every day, but I will keep my eye on this one and come back with an update for y'all. So, it's about total wellness. I'm going to try not to overload the description box with link after link after link, but I really want y'all to get the basics. Hang in there with me. It will make sense sooner rather than later. But you got to come into all of this with an open mind, whether you agree or you disagree. And again, before you push play on any of my videos, you have to say, okay, I've been duped. Say those two things. I've been duped, and let me see if I can understand this a different way. You'll be surprised what you learn. Questions, comments, leave it there. I'm nobody's expert, but I'm telling you what I know, and I don't mind discussing it. Almost nothing offends me, so like, click, subscribe, share. It'll make sense sooner rather than later. So I'm going to get out of here before I'm late for an appointment. I'm going to have to break this video up. But as we go along, I promise, now that we've gotten all the little foundation stuff out of the way, I'm going to try to keep these videos to 10 to 12 minutes. But as you can see, you got to look at this thing from all angles and understand. I'll keep saying it. What's the backdrop? What did we miss? What's going on? It's like all these reality shows now. Every grown person sitting on the couch starts talking about childhood or some trauma or something they didn't deal with or something that's bothering them that nobody ever thought could bring them to the point where something like this could happen. And it means it's the same thing. We missed something. We dropped the ball. What happened? How do we fix it, for lack of a better word? And how do we, use this as a means to prevent it from happening all over again? So, yeah, that's it. I'm done being fired up, and I just took my happy pills. Can you tell? Yeah, I call them happy pills. So, yeah, leave me some questions, and that is about all for today. So, wellness wishes. Click, like, subscribe, share. Leave me some comments. Leave me some questions, and I'm gonna come back and holler at y'all next week sometime. So we'll get it together. Be blessed, and yeah. I'm going to holler at y'all in the next vid. So, but I want to answer to that. Top 5 psychiatric drugs in this country that are known to be violence-inducing. Be surprised how many of those school shooters were on medications. So, we have a lot of things that aren't working. What is the solution? Stigma, stereotype, let's talk solutions. Welcome, and I'm going to talk to y'all later, okay? Bye.